Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this final episode of our webinar series, NI Case Studies on Climate Action. Today's episode is on collaborating to create a climate-compatible industry. I'm Géraldine Noé. I'm Head of Environment at Business in the Community Northern Ireland, and I am very, very happy to welcome you all today and to welcome our guest speakers, Fiacre O'Donnell from Encirc, Vidrola, and Niall Walker from Diageo. So gentlemen, you are very welcome, and thank you for accepting this invitation. If we look at today's agenda, so we are here together for 45 minutes, just to kick off your last week of work, hopefully of 2020. I will be giving you a short introduction on our business action on climate campaign. Then we'll have the presentations from our guest speakers, and we'll have time for questions at the end of this webinar. So if you do have questions, please write them in the question box that is on the panel. And we cannot hear or see the audience. So if you do have, again, questions, technical problems or anything, please do pop them in the chat box. So to start, this webinar series that we've had this December, let's call it our winter webinar series, is part of our business action on climate campaign, where we want to challenge and support all organizations in Northern Ireland to address the climate emergency. So as you know, we have around 10 years now to act, to really take practical action and to change the course of what's happening on the climate front. So we want really to invite you to take action and to start taking action now. So what can you do? You can sign our climate action pledge, which is a commitment to reduce your emissions, either your greenhouse gas emissions, either by 50% or 30% by 2030. And you also commit to reporting your emissions every year to Business in the Community for an aggregate reporting. So that's one action you can take. You will find a lot of support and resources on our climate webpage, so bitcni.org.uk/climate. One of those resources is a how to get started toolkit. We hope that it's a useful, useful guidelines to get you started on your climate journey. But we do have other resources there, and that's also where we put all our webinars and upcoming events. If anything I've said doesn't make sense, or if you have any question or any doubt, or don't really know what to do, just please get in touch, environment@bitcni.org.uk. Always happy to have those conversations with you. And this is really a business action on climate campaign for businesses by businesses. Encirc is one of our climate champions, by the way, and sponsor of the campaign. So very happy to welcome Fiacre here today. Keep an eye also on our website for our upcoming events. This was our winter series. We hope to have another one in spring. So please, yes, do come back on the webpage and keep an eye on our social media as well. So we have a quick quiz to start this webinar today, a quick myth buster, and that will be make a nice transition to our first speaker today. How much does the glass bottle represent in the total carbon footprint of a bottle of wine? So from the moment where you start growing the grapes to including transport, bottling, and retail. So how much does the glass bottle represent? Answer 1, 16%. Answer 2, 36%. Answer 3, 76%. So you should be able to vote. There you go. So I'll be giving you some time to vote. So how much does the glass bottle represent in the total carbon footprint of a bottle of wine? Okay, I think we can show the results now, Claire. So 58% of you have replied 36%, and that is correct. The glass bottle represents 36% of the total carbon footprint of a bottle of wine. If you want to know more about the carbon footprint of a bottle of wine and the carbon footprint of everything, really, I invite you to read the book How Bad Are Bananas? The Carbon Footprint of Everything by Mike Berners-Lee. This stat is taken from that book. And I think that's the carbon footprint of a bottle of wine before any of the amazing initiatives that we are going to be talking about today. So I would like to welcome Fiacre from Encirc Vidrala, our first speaker, to let us know what we can do to reduce the carbon footprint of this glass bottle.
Lovely, thank you, Géraldine. So as mentioned, my name is Fiacre O'Donnell. I'm Director of Sustainability for the Vidrala Group, who are the parent company of Encirc. What do we do? Well, as you can see from the image, and as Géraldine has mentioned, we manufacture glass containers for the food and beverage industry. If you click on there, Claire, please. We have two business units within the group, just by means of an introduction for you. So we have the Vidrala business unit, which is 3 plants in Spain and 2 in Portugal. And then we have the Encirc business unit, which is the plant in Fermanagh, a plant in Chester, and a plant in Milan. And I'll not ask you to guess which is the one that we all like going to visit. So the group has been going now for over 50 years. We at Encirc, we were formed in 1998, so we're a wee bit newer to it. And at the minute, we produce about 8.5 billion glass containers a year throughout the whole group. We have about 3,500 employees, and the company's valued at about 2.5 billion euros, so a significant size of a company. Do you click on, please, Claire? 2020, despite all its difficulties for us, has been quite a good year for us at Encirc. So we celebrated a number of different initiatives this year. The first is that we're 5 years now with the Vidrala Group, and I suppose significant there is the fact that when we joined the Vidrala Group in 2015, we had 2 plants, the plant in Derrylin and the plant in Chester. And then through subsequent investment, we took control of the plant in Italy as well. And that investment program is maturing now come the end of February next year. We've been delayed a wee bit on it, but that's almost 300 million of investment. And it's really looking to future-proof what the business might look like. So, for example, one of the things that we've just done is a couple of weeks ago, we lit the world's largest glass container furnace in Cheshire, just about 900 tons of glass per day. And that's significant because you get much more efficient furnaces the bigger that you build them. You also have a bigger risk factor that comes along with that. And then also very excitingly for us, we have installed the first Industry 4 ready production line. Now we're fairly specific in this whole idea of Industry 4 ready because we know we have quite a bit of development work to do in that, but from where we're starting now, where we can laser code bottles and identify them right away to we can create closed loop links within the manufacturing process, it forms that basis for us for future development and really getting to that target of, well, why don't we pack every bottle that we manufacture? So jump on, please, Claire. The significance of those 4 things is that we recognize that sustainability isn't just something that's a nice to do anymore. It's absolutely central to everything. And from the conversations that we've been having with our customers, specifically over the last number of months, it's really ramped up to a much higher level. Jump on, Claire, please. And one of the difficulties that we had around sustainability was really understanding what the challenge is to us. What does sustainability mean? What are we trying to do? So using the business and the community core model, so if any of you are thinking of it, it's a really good starting point to that. We were able to develop our 4 Ps. And our 4 Ps are people, place, planet, and prosperity. And we're pulling this together into our campaign that's called Glass Made Good. Now, one of the important pieces to that, and Géraldine mentioned already this decade of delivery that the UN have ascribed to the 20s is the importance of linking in to the Sustainable Development Goals. So whilst you might have objectives in there that you want to achieve, you really need to tie them back into those SDGs to find out what it is that we're actually trying to plan on doing. Would you jump on, Claire, please? So if we look at our four Ps, we have people, place, planet, and prosperity. Prosperity one is, I suppose, is the main one for us from a governance perspective. So it's where profitability, sits. And profitability is important in this whole process. We can't miss that out. And if you look back at those 4 or 5 things that we just mentioned earlier, if we didn't have the profitability in place, there's no way we were going to be able to invest in those. But there's also a part in there which suggests that we must take responsibility in the industries that we're working in, and we must take that leadership position. We can't sit back and let others take up the mantle and do this for us. We need to push ourselves forward. The second part of this then is people. And whilst we often talk about the big things, and I'll share with you some of the big things, if you like, that we're trying to do, once we involve and engage people in that process, suddenly we find there's lots of efficiencies that can be generated through our business. The important things like people development, health and well-being, equality, diversity, and inclusion. If we look at those, for example, if we've well-trained people, they're going to come up with better ideas. They're going to do things better than before. If we're looking after their health and well-being, then we have that their health and well-being at the centre of what we do, and you get that response. And then if we look at the whole piece on equality, diversity, and inclusion, by having that diverse workforce, we generate more ideas. So combining those 3 things together really give you a positive and powerful base for projecting on further. Place is the next one. So place covers things like, for us anyway, community liaison, biodiversity, and again, we're in the food and beverage industry, and if you think of the products that we manufacture for and the customers that we work with, biodiversity is a fundamental. We need to make sure that crops, and be that grapes or malt or whatever, are all being fertilized, and so we have our responsibility to look after and develop biodiversity. And again, if this is something that you think you should be looking at, the biodiversity charter that BITC do is really, really good at helping you guide and shape that. But one of the key important pieces to that is also our liaison with our customers and our suppliers, because by working with both of those, we can see the challenges that are coming through from our customer perspective, but we also can work with our suppliers to create the solutions. And it's this combined effort, I think, that will see us through. So if you just jump on one, please, Claire, and we'll talk about planet in a wee bit more detail. For planet, we have the 3 key areas again: energy, transportation, and resource efficiency. If you jump on one, please, Claire. The first one to look at then is the transportation piece. One of the frustrations that we have had recently is looking at the idea of trying to get biodiesel into our trucks and how we could best do that. We're on the verge of ordering or looking to order new trucks, and we thought, well, can we order trucks with biodiesel? So we're in a project at the minute to try and see if we can get that set up, be it biodiesel, be it gas, be it methanes or whatever, but we know we need an alternative there. But one of the big models that we have that works really well for our business and is continually developing is this whole idea of our 360. Next slide, Claire, please. If you look at this gives a little example of what it is that we're talking about. So inside the big circle in the middle is what you have as our process. So to the left of that, you have the 2 circles. One shows a ship and one shows a lorry. And basically what the model is we bring in products from all over the world, mostly wines, but we do beers, soft drinks, cider, some spirit-based fabs, and so on. Those are delivered into us. We manufacture the bottles. We can fill those bottles. We can store those bottles in our automated bonded warehouse, and then we can deliver those out on behalf of customers if they so wish to retail. So if I give you an example, wine is one of the big things that we do. The wine comes into us in containers from all over the world. Everything's made on site. And because we have such a variety of products that we manufacture, when it comes to the dispatching process, we can consolidate the loads. And by consolidating the loads, it means that Not every one of those loads of Shiraz wine that come in has to go to a national distribution centre somewhere, to get broken down, to go to a regional distribution centre somewhere, to then go on to store. We're working on the basis that we can supply regional distribution centres first off, and ultimately, when we get into the likes of our automated case picking, which is a project for the future, we will theoretically be able to deliver pallets directly to store. So again, taking out a lot of these transportation movements. You just click the next slide, please, Claire. Now, what's really interesting about this is us as consumers and our perception of the products that we are consuming. So would it make any difference to you if I told you a bottle of wine that you were drinking was filled in Australia and imported into the UK then, or that the wine was imported in bulk in 23,000 litres into the UK and then bottled? It probably wouldn't make any difference to most people, but it does to some. But what we worked out quite recently there was the carbon impact of doing those two different routes. The orange lines in this graph are the lines for when you import bottled products, and the grey is when you import the product in bulk. Now, Australia is right up there as one of the most popular countries in the UK for wine, and in Ireland, and even parts of Europe as well, believe it or not. And what we found out from our study is that we have a reduction of over 40%, 40%, in the carbon impact of transportation if we bring it in bulk and fill it in the UK. Speaking to those in the know, a guy that used to work with us called Justin Wine, Justin Knock, he was a master of wine. Justin was a big advocate of this process because what he said was that by importing in bulk, you get better consistency than just importing in a bottle. So there's a great story behind that one. Click on to the next one, please, Claire. One of the other big challenges that comes from our customers is to continually use more recycled glass in our products. Now, in green glass, we can use up to 80, 85%, and brown glass is about 60%, and clear glass is about 40%. We could use more, but we can only use more if we can get more. Now, if we look at the south of Ireland, they're really good at collecting their glass. They're collecting almost 88% of the glass that they put on the market. In Northern Ireland, we're just over the 50%. So of all the bottles put in, we only get 50% back. When you consider what glass is, it's an infinitely recyclable material. Every time we get a glass bottle, it saves us using raw materials. It saves us having to quarry, transport raw materials, and so on. For every 10% extra cullet, as it's called, recycled glass, that we put in our furnace, we save 5% carbon emissions, 3% energy. So it's really worthwhile doing. We are part of a project now called Close the Glass Loop. The aspiration of Close the Glass Loop is that we will we'll increase the collection of glass for recycling from its current European average of 74% to 90%. By getting there, we can add more into bottles and we can all feel better about the bottles that we're using. Next slide, Claire, please. Now, one of the big challenges, of course, and we ultimately end up getting there, is our use of energy. And we're one of the energy intensive users. We're part of foundation industries, including the likes of cement and steel and chemicals and so on, that use lots and lots of energy. And we recognize that, but we also recognize that we can fix that because we know within the industry and working along with our customers, we have a desire to do that. Our sense at this point is that hydrogen is going to be that energy that will fix that for us. We're not in a position that we're going to get much hydrogen coming through until probably 2029 or 2020 or 2030. And it's going to be even more difficult, we think, for us in Northern Ireland to get there for the volumes that we need. But again, it's not something that we have set aside at this point. We're really working hard to get there. But in the meantime, then, one of the projects that we're doing is to run our furnaces. And again, this will be a world's first for container glass. Is to use biodiesel. So in January next year, along with the support of a number of our customers, including Neil, who's going to talk afterwards, we're looking at the option of can we use biodiesel, and what will that look like, and what will that mean for the bottles and the carbon impact that we're having for those bottles. It also is future-proofing us, because whilst we have an aspiration to use hydrogen, we think that we're going to have to combine hydrogen with another fuel in the future to give it the the proper balance that we need within our furnaces. And if we can do the biodiesel trials now, and we can understand how the biodiesels work in our furnace, that can be a big tick for us for the future. Jump on, please, Claire. Our aspiration from an Encirc perspective is that we will have a carbon neutral future. Now, that is a massive statement for us to work on, considering the impact that energy has within our business. But we know we have to keep working to do that. We know that if we do stand still, we're going to get past either by competing materials or by our competitors. We feel we have the edge on our competitors at this point, and we want to stay there. So the next point is to make glass the proper or the real choice as a packaging medium. And then finally, Claire, the next slide, if you would, please. What we do need to recognise, and I suppose a point that I would emphasise with you all, it's difficult to achieve this by yourself. It is much, much better to try and achieve this from a collaborative perspective. So working along with customers, working along with suppliers, working along with university, working along with organisations like BITC and so on, that is the way that you'll be able to achieve the results that you so wish. That's me, Claire. If you would like to move on, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fiacre. As always, super, super inspiring to hear everything that you're doing. I think you introduced very nicely our next speaker, Niall Walker from Diageo, looking at how you are collaborating to create just a better future in general and a cleaner industry. So Niall, over to you.
Thanks, Geraldine. Claire, can you click next slide, please? Hi everyone, I'm Niall Walker. I'm Diageo's Package and Sustainability Manager, which is a new role in the company. I've been with Diageo 5 years, and before that I did 12 years in its supply base, so I know the importance of collaboration across the value chain. Just sharing this first slide with you, it's always been our ambition to be the best performing, most trusted and respected branded company in the world. And what we added just over a year ago was a 6th pillar of our ambition, which you can see on the inner side of the left of the image there, to pioneer grain to glass sustainability. So this took us from just looking at our own business and our own operations to our entire value chain, and both from end to end and with an ambition to make it truly circular. Next slide. So, as speakers talked about, at Diageo here, we have 5 pillars of our strategy towards our 2030 ambition. It's very holistic. It looks at how we connect not only with our customers, but our communities and our responsibilities quite holistically in society. So we're now talking about promoting positive drinking wider than just within our business or within some of the community programs like the SMASH program that we have. We're also working with our suppliers on that. We're really proud of our movement and our progression to champion inclusion and diversity, and we've set even more ambitious targets towards 2030, which we're looking for all of our key suppliers and customers to participate with us on. We've done great work in preserving water, especially in areas where water is scarce, and we've got further efficiency-based ambitions for that. When we come to a circular economy, there's the 2 key pillars, one materials and the second energy. They're so deeply interconnected, but we want to accelerate to a low carbon future, and using circular economy thinking become sustainable by design. Next slide. So these are our targets that we launched on the 24th of November. You may have seen them in the media. If not, then here you can have a quick scan across the page to look at some of the big numbers that we're trying to achieve in this decade of action. So again, you can see really challenging targets in water efficiency, in community work, in terms of responsible drinking, and in terms of diversity and skills and employability. We've talked quite a lot about carbon today. This is our first time to look out of our scope 1, And we're going to probably grow, our ambition is to grow by 5% year on year. So this is the first time where we say, okay, let's take a measure and a hold on carbon. Yes, we want to grow a top line of our business, mid-single digit growth, our chief exec, Ivan Menezes, talks about. But right now we're saying, okay, for peak carbon, we absolutely have to reduce carbon by 50% by 2030. So that is a huge target that we're just out there now building roadmaps with our customers, our business models, our business and our key suppliers, and saying how, you know, what's it going to take for us to hit this ambitious Scope 3 ambition. Next slide. And we don't know all the answers. So what we see here is in the green, the define roadmap. So we look at this from reduce, restore, and reinvent. And almost all thinking in business and in consumer product groups until now has been reductionist thinking. How can we lightweight? How can we become more efficient? How do we overall reduce? And we know now that that reductionist thinking only takes us so far. Restore, for the world to become a more restorative place, is very useful and we must do it. But again, you can see in the maroon element there, again, it only takes us just south of halfway towards our ambition. So what it's going to take for us to really become sustainable by design in the future is new technologies, innovations, and bold collaborations to equal up with our bold ambitions. We don't know the answers to what all these things are yet, but we have had a long history in setting ambitious targets and finding a way to make them work. So we're very, very heavy right now in terms of external engagement, the art of the possible, and finding big bets that are going to help us transform our business. Next slide. Now, that's all very good to see in terms of the top line corporate strategy. We absolutely have to do that. And it's great to take a wider approach to our thinking over how we'll do business in the future compared to now. But it all boils down to people and what people can do to make things happen. So at Diageo, we're really proud that we stand on the shoulder of giants. You think about 200, 250 years ago, Arthur Guinness, Alexander Gordon, John and Alexander Walker, taking brands and making them beautiful and working and celebrating life every day, everywhere, worldwide. You know, we are custodians of these brands past and present, and it's our responsibility to help build their future. But I think what we can take away from the people aspect is just how much individual people can make an impact going forward. Next slide. So I'm looking to call out two people from Northern Ireland today on this slide, who we can see as being pioneers in this space in terms of helping us find a future that's sustainable by design. So we tip our hat to Fiacre from Encirc for really leading the glass industry revolution, a very traditional industry. It's very energy hungry. It has a lot of positives, but it also has a lot of challenges. So not just to Encirc, but we thank Fiacre for having the vision to go down the biodiesel trial in 2021. We're one of a number of collaborators on that, and we look forward to marketing and celebrating that as it happens in the new year. And that's a really important first step, the transition for the glass industry. And you know, our brands have 250 years of brand equity tied in uniquely with glass. So it's going to be even better if we can find a route to the future that involves it. So thanks to Fiacre. Next slide. And the second person I want to highlight is a Diageo person, which is Kat McCaffrey from, I'm going to try to pronounce it correctly, Lisnaskia. She's our new product development manager at Seedlip. And if you've not seen this yet, she's really, she's incredibly smart lady. She's very visionary. She's very passionate. And she's helped people at the Magical Mushroom Company use mycelium technology to use waste from mushroom production to produce secondary packaging for our non-alcoholic brand Seedlip. So again, lots of science, lots of creativity, and lots of innovation there. But it's very hard to get things to scale without passion and support and drive. And when we talk to Kat, we can see that in abundance. So again, we see Kat as a great pioneer in terms of us becoming sustainable by design. That's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to turn on my webcam. And thank you for this really inspiring presentation. I love the idea of not knowing, of setting a target, not knowing how you'll get there, but just making sure that your people have the right drive and the right knowledge to help you get there. I think that's really a powerful message. To our audience, please don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat box or question box. I think if I'd like to start with the first one, maybe would be what will the next, the big step in your climate journey? What would it be in 2021? What's the first thing you will tackle in 2021? Maybe we can start with you, Fiacre.
Well, the first thing, as Neil mentioned there, that we're going to do in 2021, there's three things that are coming at us fairly quick. The first thing is that we're doing a furnace rebuild on our furnace in Derrylin. So this is an event that happens every 12, 14 years. But we know from the furnace rebuilds that we've been doing quite recently that the efficiencies that we get through when we rebuild these furnaces are a really, really positive step for us. The second thing then is we're doing the biodiesel trial. So whilst we have one furnace out, the other furnace is going to do this biodiesel trial. It's timed that way so that we can measure everything and get the full impact of what it is that we're trying to do. And then the third thing as part of that, so the biodiesel project started out initially as an alternative fuel project. But as soon as we got our hands on the alternative fuel thing, I suppose the opportunities that were presenting itself drove us on to do things differently. So one of the things that we've decided to do during this is to try and increase the amount of cullet, so recycled glass, that we use in the manufacture during the biodiesel trial. So normally for green glass, you sit around 80%, and that's all to do with availability, as I mentioned earlier. So during this campaign, we're actually going to push that to somewhere between 95 to 100%. It practically means the bottle made from bottles that were in the waste stream only a couple of weeks ago. That, we hope, will give us a really strong foundation, one, to prove that we don't have to stick with fossil fuels, that we can try alternatives. Two, that we can really push the boundaries in terms of the percentage of recycled glass that we can use. And three, to highlight the fact that should we, or if we could organize ourselves a bit better to collect more recyclable materials. And by the way, this isn't just glass. You know, we have a wee circular economy network in Northern Ireland with Huhtamäki, who do paper, with Cherry Polymers, who take plastic, with Agri-NI, who do food waste. And when we look at all those different organizations and we see their needs, paper, plastic, food waste, and so on, a study that we did a couple of years ago told us that there was about £150 million worth of economic activity that we could generate just by using raw materials, waste materials that we can turn into raw materials and keep in Northern Ireland and produce something good. So that's our big aspirations going into 2021 to start with. That's just January.
Okay, a busy year ahead then. That's a good start. What about you, Neil? What's the big thing that Diageo will tackle in 2021?
I think it's a case of for us to, reduce, restore, reinvent. We know we're pretty clear in terms of reduce and restore that we really need to think about reinvent. So for us, I think we'd really love to explore or really drive up the explorations that our brands and markets are doing in new business models that allow a circular economy to be like a new economic model that connects better with the customers. Move away from the idea of consumers and think about customers and find new ways for us to help them celebrate life. Because it's by that engagement and it's by that attractive proposition to to customers that were really going to drive change in the business. Reinvent also has two other strands for me in terms of, the process for manufacturing glass. 83% of our packaging is glass, so it's really important that from a big bet perspective we establish a roadmap with the glass industry for change. We have to, from a carbon perspective, because of our growth on an efficiency basis, cut the carbon per case that we place in the market by 80% to achieve that absolute 50% reduction. That is huge, and that needs one plan from the whole industry to come together to secure its future. And then the last thing that I'm really interested to look at from a biological cycle of the part component of the circular economy is the concept of industrial symbiosis. So rather than a value chain sitting and thinking individually in terms of their aspects and how they get to a better position, I would encourage us to think about, what materials and energy are we using to create value chains for societies or industries, and how do we cross-collaborate, across sectors to completely transform the way we do business just now. I think that's really new for us. I think we've looked at it before just in terms of our own business. I think it's a big question. I think it's expensive, but I think it could have massive potential outcomes as well.
Great. So a busy year ahead as well for you, I imagine.
Yeah. Yes, but it's brilliant. This is the work we want to do, so it's a good challenge to have.
Yeah, Géraldine, I think Niall is exactly right there, and I think we mentioned it in the presentations. There's no way that we're going to be able to solve the issues alone. It really has to be a collaborative approach to the whole that we do it. And I think once we get into that way of thinking, I think we'll see great successes coming through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that ties really well with our business action on climate campaign. So thank you for the link here. We have a question from the audience. How do you encourage staff participation and buy-in regarding sustainability? Fiacre, do you want to start maybe?
Yeah, go on, Fiacre.
All right. Well, one of the things that we did a couple of years ago, Géraldine, was we kind of tried to recognize the position that we were in as a business, and we thought, customers are responding very well to us. We know our owners are responding very well to us because they're investing in us. We know our shareholders are responding well because everything's going well. Oh my God, we're in a difficult place here because the only place for us to go is down. So how are we going to improve this? What are we going to do? And the big gap for us was the engagement of our people. So we launched a program called Engage, and what we do differently now than we would have done years ago is that if we're doing a project, we don't drive the project from the top. We ask people to participate in it. So I'll give you an example. Recently, we looked at plastic that we have on site, and obviously plastic being a big competitor to glass and so on, so on, so on. So we use a thing called Workplace by Facebook. It's like an internal comms system, and it's been so effective for us, especially in the past year that was in it, with the need to communicate frequently and often with people and to allay their fears and so on. It's been absolutely invaluable to us. So we pushed this out and say, anybody like to join the plastics group? And we had 6 people volunteer to do it. And I think that's the key. Involving people in the likes of projects to understand what the challenge is and for them to come up to the solutions has been hugely successful for what we do. We've done it now with plastics. We did it with our biodiversity. When we applied for the biodiversity charter, we set up a committee to look at it, and we now have flowers and bug hotels and nesting boxes and so on all around the site on it. We did it when we opened our gym. Again, the same thing. I don't know how to run a gym or what equipment people want or whatever. Open it out to people who are much more aware of those things and let them run and operate the gym. And they're doing that now. So they're deciding when the gym opens, when the gym closes, taking on the advice of the executive at the minute for when these things can happen. So that for me is the big part. Involve them in the projects, give them a guide, and then let them come up with the solutions.
Okay, thanks. Niall, any specific things that work well when engaging with your employees?
I can think of the answer from two fronts. One is that we're a very young company these days. I'm 41, and there's many people that are younger than me in the organisation, and we don't really need to encourage them to want to work in this space. We need to give them space to do so, guidance along the way, and the freedom to succeed. I think can't help that generation quick enough, which is really an incredible change over the last 2 or 3 years, I'd say, Geraldine. The second one is from a policy perspective, have it in your must-dos. So it's in Diageo's ambition. It's in all of our objectives, all 27,500 of us. And you know how we're bonused is factored upon our 2030 ambition as well. So you can look at the carrot and the stick. So you've got both in those examples there, which I think is really powerful.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think we'll just finish with very quickly, if you had one wish, one thing you'd like to see happening in 2021 in Northern Ireland on climate or the environment, obviously, what would it be? Fiacre, do you want to start?
For me, I think, Geraldine, I'm going to go in support of the Climate Champions campaign. I think that we've set up a great opportunity for companies to start on their journey. And I know it can be difficult and people don't know and they're scared of the commitment. But if the biggest drinks company in the world can decide to set targets and not know exactly how they're going to get there, as in Diageo, then surely the rest of us can jump on board with those as well. Knowing that we now have a number of companies signed up who are willing to help, who are willing to share their experiences and guidances and so on to do it. So for me, my aspiration would be, from a Northern Ireland perspective, that more Northern Ireland companies would sign up to the campaign and ask for support or get involved with achieving a reduction in our carbon emissions.
Thank you. That's my wish as well. Niall?
I think that what Fiacre just said, everybody must sign up to the SBTIs. You know, it's fundamentally important. But when you do, or in the process of doing, or as when you do, reach out and collaborate with people that you may never have even thought about before. I think with that community-based approach, then good people working together will create a better future for us all.
No.
Claire, do you want to jump in if Geraldine's having mic issues?
Yeah, I think we've lost Geraldine. Just to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you to Fiacre and to Niall. And that is the last in our series of the winter webinars, as Geraldine named them. So Geraldine's email address is there on the screen, and if anyone has any questions, just get in touch. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Geraldine.